This might be one of the best AI cryptos I've ever seen, but it doesn't come without its flaws. So let's look into Akash Network, and later I'll also tell you if I'm planning to have it in my portfolio. So what exactly is Akash Network? First of all, it's a very technical project, so keep this in mind when you're looking into it yourself and when you listen to whatever I'm gonna say here, because I've tried to summarize everything in a simple terms, but they are working on some pretty high tech stuff that it's not easy to wrap your hand around. So just keep this in mind. But in very simple terms, Akash provides GPU power for rendering, similar to what Render Network does. And it's a decentralized product, obviously, and they have implemented stuff like AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. So basically people around the world that have these kind of GPUs can provide the services in a decentralized manner to people that need rendering. And they have a huge focus on AI, and not only to use the resources of the network for people that need it for developing some kind of AI, but themselves also they're working on several AI products that look very, very intriguing in my opinion. And the very first thing that you want to point out, and I think it's kind of obvious, but the space of computing powers and GPUs is very competitive. And I mean very, very competitive. And we have the big boys here. As you can see here, it's AWS, it's Microsoft, it's Google, but all of them are more expensive compared to Akash. So that is pretty much the first thing that stands out in my opinion. And it's very important for the long-term success of this project. But yes, the service is relatively cheaper compared to the centralized solutions. I'm not sure if it's better or not. I'm definitely not an expert on this, but that's just the beginning for Akash, and hopefully they can maintain this and even lower the prices due to their structure, or because they're relatively small as a market share and these guys are huge, and I don't know if they will be able to compete ever, but it's good to know that there are smaller players like this. And pretty much all the metrics for Akash have been going up. It's a relatively new project, so it's kind of expected. And as you can see here, the numbers will not be great. I just want to show you a couple of tables. So this is the active leases. And as you can see, this is pretty much a number that's been going out since June of last year. So for the past 6-7 months, it's been stable, and then now it's growing massively. And we're talking about 1,000 or so leases here. It was less than that, a lot less than that. So it's not crazy volume. Don't expect this to grow into a massive conglomerate like Google, at least not in the next year or so. But it's good to see the numbers go up. And the same is true pretty much for their CPU capacity. So pretty much these are processors that are available on Akash for different tasks. And you can see, again, not crazy growth because they went from 9K to like almost 10K, a bit over 10K. So not a crazy amount of volume, but that's just for January and for the past week or so. So just keep this in mind. They're at all-time high. Obviously, these are posted by the team, so they will make it look nice. But just keep in mind that they are a solid project that is growing significantly in the past several months. And another reason that I really like this project is that they have true token utility. So AKT is their token, and pretty much it's used on the marketplace. This means that whenever somebody wants to rent a GPU or a CPU, you have to have these tokens and you have to pay. And now actually, I looked at this project a few months ago, and now they're developing even more. And that's another thing that makes me very bullish on them, is that they're constantly building and they are delivering. It's not like they just promised. This AKT.2 wasn't really available a few months ago, and now it seems like they have features that are live already. And you can go here. I'll leave these links down in the description, but you can go in here on the GitHub and you can get more details on why this matters for the token protocol. And I'll just highlight a few things. Their fees, obviously, they're paid in Akash, and these will be held by the team, or they're paid by the people that secure the network. So there are different ways to incentivize the whole system with the tokens, and obviously they're using the token itself to pay for stuff and for services. And also one thing that stood out, but I don't think it's still active, is the burning mechanism that they're probably going to introduce together with the staking mechanisms. So these things are usually a very good sign for fundamentals, even if you don't have a solid project fundamentally like Akash is in general. Having staking and burning means reduced supply in both cases. It means price goes up. So just keep this in mind and keep track if they're going to be delivering. It's not clear, but here it says that fees that are denominated in non-Akash tokens are traded into Akash and then they're burnt, which I don't know how this is going to work. So they are introducing also with this update a way to pay with other currency, not just with Akash. And I don't know what will be the remainder percentage of these fees. That will be interesting because, for example, for someone, maybe they want to pay in USDC. They have incentives for people to pay in Akash, so we don't know how this will work and if it will work, but definitely a nice development that I like seeing. And if you go into this article, which pretty much summarizes last year for them, and you go through the points, there are a few things that I wanted to point out. Obviously, you can do further research, but they're starting to train the foundation of an AI model on Akash. So pretty much that will be their own model. And then they're also developing the so-called Akash chat, which in simple terms means it will be something like ChatGPT. So it will be an assistant, whatever, you can use it however you want. However, it will be decentralized and it will be open source, which ChatGPT is definitely not. And they're capturing like, I don't know, 90+% of the market share currently. So it's good to see that we have some, powerful tools like this that will be decentralized, and I think this is important. Maybe me and you, we don't care about this. Like Google runs our life together with ChatGPT now. We're so used to it already. But having such kind of solutions, because the power of AI is so massive, I think it's very important. That's just my 2 cents on it. Of course, we can argue on the subject a lot in the comments below. And the last thing that I wanted to show you on the positive side, and that I'm kind of still on the fence, but I'm gonna show it anyway. So this is their supply schedule for new tokens, and as you can see, it's in an Excel sheet. So it's kind of strange. I don't like when projects have Excel sheets instead of like official pages. So current circulating supply is at 230 million around, and by the end of the year, that would be around 260 million, and that's around 10% inflation. And then the inflation number is decreasing year over year. So you can see here in this eye line here that you have inflation a sort of 50% when they started, 20%. Currently we're around 10%, and then the next years it will be 6, 7, 4%, 3%, and so on, while we get the full circulating supply. And actually that's not a massive difference between circulating and locked supply. Currently we have, as I said, around 220 million tokens in circulation, and the max supply is something very weird as a number. It's 388 million. And there is some exchange diversification, not great. There are still no big boys, but Kraken is a very reputable exchange. So I really like when there's a token there and there's actually some volume. It's not great volume, it's like just 600K, but still there is some volume here. And as you can see, most of the token trading is happening here on KuCoin, which is also quite a big exchange, but the big boys like Coinbase, like Binance, obviously they are still not in the mix. So it will be interesting to see if Akash gets listed and what that will bring to the table, because currently the valuation is at almost $700 million, and I was looking at this initially at around 500 if I remember correctly, and I still haven't bought in, by the way, and this is 2 or 3 times lower than Render Network, which is pretty much their main competitor, and that's pretty much all the things that I like. There are a few things that I really don't like, and if we go back to the table here, like this is a big project, it's a professional project, and you couldn't pretty much pull a table on your website that says this is our supply, this is how it's distributed, this is how much we own, and so on, so on. It's not clear, it's not, it just shows inflation and so on, and it's in detail. Great, perfect, but where's the allocation? Like how much the team owns of this, how much are the investors, for example, how much is locked for these rewards? Probably might be most of it, by the looks of it, of the remaining supply, but still it's not really clear, and I don't really like this. Yeah, they might be having a sustainable model for revenue with the whole system and real utility, like real life utility. It's not just a magical token on the internet, but this just doesn't fly with the overview of the project and how, generally speaking, good it looks on paper. And this is definitely a red flag for me. And on top of this, even though they're bragging for their good results and they have like 1,000 or 10,000 euros or whatever, not even this much, guys, I mean, the competition here is massive. And if you think that huge companies like Google and Amazon will not push this massively, because this was probably one of the biggest trends in the history of the world, like AI and having the power to use it, because this is pretty much CPU and GPU power that everybody's gonna need. And this little project to completely succeed, you know, I'm not sure how good that would be or how massive it could get. Honestly, for our purposes, since we're purely speculators, obviously, this all might look great and it might be a good project, but we're here for the quick 10 or 20x gains, let's face it. And you can see that the generated images have been going up. You know, I think this is the actual number as of the shooting of this video. Around 100,000 images have been generated. And just a few months ago, this was about, so this is about a month ago, it was half that. So, you know, very interesting to see. They are growing, definitely, so on. But fighting with the big boys, I don't know. And even in crypto, on the crypto side, there's also big projects here like Render Network that are like serious competition. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to monitor what's going to happen from now on. Another thing that I don't really like is just the complexity of the product. And yes, they have real utility for the token, but they don't allow for USD payments, for example. So a lot of people might get discouraged by this. You have to be really a crypto native to, first of all, get a grasp of their documents and, you know, how to register and so on and deploy a wallet. And this is not a MetaMask wallet that most people are familiar with. You need to have a separate wallet. So you know, it's kind of complicated, honestly. So, you know, this is another thing that will kind of slow growth. But again, the apes like me and most people watching this video will probably not even care about using the product itself. They would just try to speculate on the price. And this is exactly what has been happening. Because as I said, like, it's not a big project, but if you go to the chart and if we discuss like what my plans are, you'll see that Akash has been doing very well. Since it launched, it had a massive sell-off, but this was during the bear market. Probably it will be some selling pressure here, so not my favorite setup to see this kind of bleed before it stabilizes and accumulates. But then you can see here, like, had a beautiful accumulation range, broke out. Honestly, I didn't follow this project back here. Probably it would have been one of the best AI plays, because even from this area around here, from the secondary breakout to the price currently, it's around 400%, and it was more than a 10x from the lows here. So pretty already been quite up, I would say. And even if we go to the monthly, you'll see like the monthly chart is just insane. Like, there's been no pullback at all. So I'm definitely not interested in buying into this right now, just because we've had 4 consecutive green months after just 1 red. And it's something that I'm still like pondering, because there are a lot of good projects that I'm looking into. AI related, gaming related, L2 on Ethereum. And this is definitely up there with the boys that I'm mostly interested in, but I'll definitely wait for a bigger correction. If it doesn't correct and if it just continues flying, that's fine. But I just really need to see some side action at least, or some correction, because this has been pretty much straight up and the size of these candles have been massive. And I don't like to buy in such kind of environment. Potentially there's like a breakout scenario here on these levels, you know, and on this is on the weekly, by the way. So on the daily, you might fine tune, you know, a setup here somewhere in these highs, but I'm currently definitely not going to be buying this. I just want to see it crash hard, reestablish itself, new accumulation, maybe slightly higher, maybe somewhere around here, and then maybe I'll consider it. And then it will actually depend how other tokens look at this time, because another AI related token that is doing great is Tau, and it has much bigger valuation, but it has been, look at this chart, like straight up, and had a good correction, and then it just look at the strength that it has been showing. And I think this is a much more popular project compared to Akash. So I'm not sure where do I want to put my eggs, to put it this way, because yeah, there are a lot of projects and I don't want to be spread out at around like 40 tokens or so, compared together with ordinals and JPEGs and, you know, all the boomer crypto coins. We'll see. But this one, I think, definitely has a potential for a few billion in the next cycle. And it's definitely one on my main watch list. We'll just have to see, you know, how things look after we get a correction. And if we don't, as I said, I'm not going to chase the highs. That's everything for this video, guys. And if you have any other questions, you know how to find me.